It took me losing an $80 million empire to realize I'd been building the wrong thing my entire life. For 42 years, I believed success meant never looking back. I thought the penthouse in Milan, the private jets, the supermodels on my arm, I thought that was what winning looked like. But it wasn't a straight line to wisdom. I kept stumbling, kept choosing wrong. By the time my father's lawyer forced me back to Boston, I was convinced it was just another transaction. 120 days. Collect the inheritance. Return to my real life. Then I saw him. 7 years old. My jawline. My eyes. My son. And I used to believe I had to perform perfection to earn love. That terrified me. The idea that if I showed up as myself, flawed, selfish, emotionally bankrupt, no one would want me. But I realized my actual job wasn't to impress them. It was to show up. Every single day. Even when I failed. Especially when I failed. There's a very different life here now. It's not polished. It's not the penthouse. There's no private jet waiting. There's just a 7-year-old who calls me dad now. A woman who's teaching me that trust is earned in moments, not purchased in grand gestures. And me, learning that the real luxury isn't what you inherit. It's what you build when you finally stop running. The Moreau Gallery occupied 3 floors of a converted Romanesque building on Newbury Street, all soaring ceilings and calculated light. Alexander had walked past it a dozen times over the years, never knowing. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd been within blocks of his own son, admiring the architecture while Vivienne built an empire from the wreckage he'd left behind. She stood in the main gallery, discussing a Basquiat with a client. Even from across the room, he recognized the tilt of her head, the precise gestures of her hands. When she saw him, her composure held for exactly 3 seconds before she excused herself. Not here. Her voice was ice. She led him to her office, closed the door, and didn't offer him a seat. You chose your inheritance over everything else. Over me. Vivienne, I never. I was pregnant when you left. The words landed like blows. I wrote. I called. Your father returned every letter unopened. Had my calls blocked. Told me I was unsuitable for a thorn. The room tilted. I never knew. I never received anything. Ignorance doesn't erase abandonment, Alexander. She moved to the window, arms crossed. Julien knows you as mother's old friend from university. Don't confuse him. Through the glass wall overlooking the gallery, Alexander saw him, a small boy studying a canvas with startling intensity. On the opposite wall hung children's artwork, and even from here, one piece commanded attention. The composition, the use of shadow. 7 years old. I want to know him. Want. Vivienne's laugh was sharp. You want to be in his life? Prove you can stay. 120 days of showing up, not showing off. No grand gestures, no thorn money fixing things. Just presence. She turned, her eyes holding everything they'd lost. 4 months to show me you've changed. Or you walk away forever. The Preston Academy exhibition occupied the school's austere chapel, transformed into makeshift gallery space. Alexander stood against the back wall, watching Vivienne guide Julien through the crowd of parents and patrons. The boy wore a blazer that seemed too formal for 7, his dark hair falling across his forehead the way hers once had. Marcus Chen appeared at Alexander's elbow, tall, composed, wearing success like a second skin. You must be the old friend from university. His handshake was firm, his presence beside Vivienne throughout the evening unmistakable. He was everything Alexander hadn't been, present, stable there. Julien's painting stopped Alexander cold. A window frame, empty except for the suggestion of someone just departed, a shadow, a displaced curtain. The sophistication of absence rendered by a child's hand. When the silent auction closed, Alexander had outbid everyone by a considerable margin. Vivienne found him outside. Money isn't effort. It's the opposite. Then let me work. The words came before he'd planned them. Gallery events. Setup, breakdown. Whatever you need. Her skepticism was palpable. Thursday mornings. Gallery setup. 6 a.m. I'll be there. The first Thursday, Julien arrived early with Vivienne, settling into a corner with sketchbook while Alexander assembled pedestals. The boy watched him struggle with a particularly stubborn display case before wandering over. Do you know about art? Alexander looked at his son, really looked. I'm learning. I know about what's missing from pictures. Julian's pencil moved across the page. The empty spaces tell stories too. Alexander saw it then, not just Vivienne's talent or his own analytical mind, but something deeper. The ability to recognize what absence shapes, how loss creates its own architecture. His son had inherited what both of them had learned the hard way. Will you teach me? Alexander asked. Julian considered this seriously. Maybe. If you keep coming back. The gallery at dawn felt like a church, silent, unforgiving of pretense. Alexander's Brioni suit collected dust as he wrestled a shipping crate, the wood splintering against Italian wool. Vivienne glanced over once, returned to her inventory without comment. Marcus appeared most Thursdays, observing. Vivienne doesn't need another complication. I'm not trying to complicate anything. No. Marcus's expression remained neutral. You're just the absent father playing working-class hero in a $5,000 suit. The suit was ruined by week 3. Alexander stopped replacing them. Over coffee one morning, while Julian sketched in the back office, Vivienne's facade slipped. My parents blamed me for getting pregnant. Your father blamed me for trapping you. She stirred her cup with mechanical precision. I blamed myself for believing love mattered more than money. Took me years to realize the mistake wasn't loving you, it was thinking you'd choose differently than you did. I would have, Alexander said quietly. If I'd known. Maybe. She didn't sound convinced. When Julian needed help preparing his presentation on Rothko, Alexander found himself at their apartment, a modest space in Cambridge, filled with art and books and evidence of a life built without him. He helped Julian arrange prints, explained color field theory in 7-year-old terms. Why didn't you visit before? The question hung between them. Vivienne stood in the doorway, listening. I made terrible choices, Alexander said. I'm trying to make better ones now. Are you good at it? Julian asked. Making better choices? Not yet. But I'm practicing. At the Harvard Club later that week, Catherine Ashworth stage whispered about his midlife crisis, the unsuitable woman from his past. Alexander smiled politely, excused himself, and returned to the gallery at dawn. He kept showing up. The estate papers arrived in bankers' boxes, his father's meticulous records of a life spent building and controlling. Alexander found the letter filed under miscellaneous correspondence, resolved, dated 10 years ago. Vivienne's handwriting, careful and clear. Asterisk, I'm carrying our child. I don't want your money. I want you to choose us. Asterisk. The pages that followed detailed everything: morning sickness during gallery interviews, feeling the baby move during her thesis defense, choosing the name Julian after her grandfather. His father had read it all, marked it handled, and buried it beneath acquisition reports and stock certificates. Alexander called the estate lawyer at midnight. He knew. He knew everything. Your father believed he was protecting the sterling legacy, Alexander. He destroyed it. Alexander's hand shook holding the pages. He destroyed everything that mattered. He brought the letter to Vivienne at the gallery after closing. She read it standing, her face unreadable. I didn't know it was intercepted, she said finally. I thought you'd received it and chosen silence. If I had received it, Alexander stopped, confronted by the question he'd avoided. I don't know if I would have come back. The man I was then. Might have chosen wealth anyway, Vivienne finished. She retrieved a worn journal from her desk. I kept this. Everything I couldn't send. He read entries spanning years. Asterisk Julian said Mama today. No one to call. Asterisk started preschool. Asked why he doesn't have a papa like other children. Asterisk I saw him in Forbes with that socialite from Milan. He looks happy. I'm invisible. Asterisk. I'm so sorry, Alexander whispered. Sorry for what happened, or sorry you got caught. But her voice had softened, just slightly. Who do you want to become, Alexander? Someone worthy of being his father. Then keep showing up. Words are easy. Presence is proof. The Boston Globe ran the headline above the fold, Sterling heir's secret son revealed at MFA Gala. Alexander's phone exploded with calls he didn't answer. Vivienne's was worse. Reporters camped outside the gallery, investors requesting clarification meetings. She confronted him in the storage room, voice tight with controlled fury. You don't get to rewrite history with one dramatic moment. I'm not trying to. Alexander set down the frame he'd been unwrapping. I'm trying to write the future differently. With what? More grand gestures. He handed her a folder, months of work with consultants, engineers, sustainability experts. Sterling Luxury Motors reimagined, hybrid technology, democratized luxury, vehicles designed for longevity rather than status. Not greenwashing. Actual transformation. And this. A second document. Sterling Foundation funds for community art programs. You direct everything. I write checks and shut up. Not as charity, she said slowly. As partnership. Marcus appeared in the doorway. He'll leave when it gets difficult, he told Vivienne. Men like him always do. The Science Museum on Saturday morning was crowded with families. Alexander and Julien stood before the lightning demonstration, just two people among many. No reservations, no private tours. Just present. Kids at school ask about my father, Julien said, watching electricity arc between spheres. I used to say he was dead. It seemed easier. Alexander's chest tightened. I'm sorry you had to feel that way. Were you lonely? When you were little? Yes. The honesty surprised him. My father gave me everything except himself. I had a mansion and felt invisible. Julien's hand slipped into his. Money doesn't make you less alone. People do. From across the exhibition hall, Vivienne watched. She'd followed them, unable to stay away. Alexander caught her eye over their son's head. For the first time, she didn't look away. The Sterling Motors board convened via emergency video conference at 3 a.m. Boston time. The Bellator merger was collapsing, 8 months of negotiations, $200 million in projected revenue, evaporating because Alexander wasn't in Milan to close personally. Your presence is non-negotiable, the CFO said. Bellator won't sign without you. The school production was Thursday. Julien had practiced his lines for weeks, the lead role in an original play about a painter searching for the perfect color. Alexander had promised front row, center. His assistant booked the overnight flight. The boarding pass sat on his desk like an accusation. Marcus found Vivienne in the gallery storage room, surrounded by unpacked crates. He'll choose the company, Marcus said, not unkindly. They always do. I know. But her hands had stopped moving. Wednesday night, Alexander stared at his passport. The car to Logan was scheduled for 4 a.m. Everything his father built, everything he'd spent a decade expanding, depended on him boarding that plane. He called his deputy at 3:47. Handle Bellator. Make whatever concessions necessary. I'm not coming. Thursday evening, Alexander sat front row center in the Preston Academy Theater. The house lights dimmed. Julien appeared on stage, saw him, and something in the boy's posture shifted, taller, surer. After curtain call, Julien navigated through congratulating parents straight to Alexander. You stayed. I'll always stay now. The Bellator merger collapsed Friday morning. $200 million gone, the board in chaos, investors demanding explanations. His mother called from Palm Beach. You destroyed your father's legacy for a child's play. No. Alexander watched Julien and Vivienne through his office window, the boy animatedly recounting his performance. I'm building my own legacy. One that includes showing up. The call disconnected. Alexander didn't call back. The Milan penthouse sold in October. Alexander moved into a brownstone on Concord Avenue, 3 blocks from Vivienne's apartment, no doorman, radiators that clanked at night. His mother called it a profound humiliation. He called it proximity to what mattered. Mornings became ritual, coffee at Charlie's kitchen, walking Julien to Preston Academy, returning to a home office where he rebuilt his business on different principles. No fanfare. Just presence, accumulating like interest. When the developer approached Vivienne about her building, luxury condos, triple market rate, 30 days to vacate, Alexander made a single phone call. Outbid by enough to end discussion, then transferred the deed into a trust for Julien, with Vivienne as trustee. Not to buy forgiveness, he said when she appeared at his door, papers in hand. To protect what you built. Her parents arrived from Quebec the following weekend. Dinner at Vivienne's apartment felt like a deposition. Her father, distinguished, protective, still angry, studied Alexander across the table. You abandoned our daughter when she needed you most. Alexander met his gaze. You're right. I can't undo that. I can only be different now. Words are easy, her father said. Time will tell. Julien set down his fork. He reads to me every night. He helps with homework. He's learning to be my father. The boy's fierce loyalty cracked something in the room's tension. Vivienne's mother touched her husband's hand. They saw it too, the routine, the constancy, the transformation happening in small increments rather than grand gestures. Marcus came to the gallery on Monday. I wanted to be the one for you, he told Vivienne quietly. But I see how you look at him when he's with Julien. I'm not ready to look at him anyway yet. No. Marcus smiled sadly. But you will be. He was right. She just wasn't ready to admit it. The Sterling Foundation Gala filled the ballroom at the Four Seasons. Boston's elite assembled for the social event of the season. Alexander stood at the podium, notes prepared about fiscal responsibility, portfolio diversification, preserving dynastic wealth. He set them aside. 10 years ago, I abandoned the woman I loved because she didn't fit my father's vision of suitable. His voice carried across the silent room. She was pregnant. I never knew because my father intercepted her letters, deemed her unworthy of our legacy. For a decade, I built an empire while my son grew up without me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. His mother stood abruptly, face white. Tonight, I'm redirecting my entire inheritance, $80 million, to an art education trust in my son's name. My father taught me wealth is legacy. Alexander found Julien in the audience, small and serious beside Vivienne. My son taught me presence is legacy. The standing ovation came, but Alexander only saw Julien's tears. Afterward, in a quiet corridor, Vivienne handed him a wooden box. Inside, letters, dozens of them, addressed to no one. I documented everything, his first steps, first words, first day of school. The life you missed. Can I read them? Not yet. But maybe, eventually. I'll wait as long as it takes. 6 months later, Sunday morning light filtered through Vivienne's brownstone windows. Breakfast was chaotic, burnt toast, spilled juice, Julien's art supplies colonizing the table. Not perfect. Real. Can I call you Dad instead of Alexander? The question stopped everything. Alexander's vision blurred. I'd be honored. Outside, a modest sedan replaced the Maserati. 3 of them reflected in its practical windows, a family earned, not inherited. Vivienne touched his hand briefly. This isn't forgiveness yet. It's foundation. Foundation is enough, Alexander said. I'll build the rest. Above them, Julien's latest painting hung, no longer depicting absence, but presence. Still learning to fill the empty spaces. Together. The Sterling Foundation Gala filled the ballroom at the Four Seasons. Boston's elite assembled for the social event of the season. Alexander stood at the podium, notes prepared about fiscal responsibility, portfolio diversification, preserving dynastic wealth. He set them aside. 10 years ago, I abandoned the woman I loved because she didn't fit my father's vision of suitable. His voice carried across the silent room. She was pregnant. I never knew because my father intercepted her letters, deemed her unworthy of our legacy. For a decade, I built an empire while my son grew up without me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. His mother stood abruptly, face white. Tonight, I'm redirecting my entire inheritance, $80 million, to an art education trust in my son's name. My father taught me wealth is legacy. Alexander found Julien in the audience, small and serious beside Vivienne. My son taught me presence is legacy. The standing ovation came, but Alexander only saw Julien's tears. Afterward, in a quiet corridor, Vivienne handed him a wooden box. Inside, letters, dozens of them, addressed to no one. I documented everything, his first steps, first words, First day of school. The life you missed. Can I read them? Not yet. But maybe, eventually. I'll wait as long as it takes. 6 months later, Sunday morning light filtered through Vivienne's brownstone windows. Breakfast was chaotic: burnt toast, spilled juice, Julien's art supplies colonizing the table. Not perfect. Real. Can I call you Dad instead of Alexander? The question stopped everything. Alexander's vision blurred. I'd be honored. Outside, a modest sedan replaced the Maserati. 3 of them reflected in its practical windows. A family earned, not inherited. Vivienne touched his hand briefly. This isn't forgiveness yet. It's foundation. Foundation is enough, Alexander said. I'll build the rest. Above them, Julien's latest painting hung, no longer depicting absence, but presence. Still learning to fill the empty spaces. Together.